Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks provides unique mentoring opportunities to enhance your modeling skills by connecting with talented modelers and manufacturers from around the globe who generously share their knowledge and artistic expertise. Build your confidence, refine modeling techniques, and share your projects with a supportive community of fellow modelers, all while enjoying the world's most rewarding hobby. Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Zoom and YouTube for our free live program. Missed a program? No problem. Individual show segments are uploaded to YouTube for convenient on-demand viewing. Be sure to connect with the New Tracks community by joining the New Tracks Facebook page, where you can interact with other modelers and see what they are modeling. Visit our website at www.newtracksmodeling.com, where you'll find information about upcoming events and the latest issue of our magazine, New Tracks Modeler. New Tracks Modeler features articles from builds on the show, exciting new products, and other great articles. And now, here is the host of New Tracks Modeling, Tom Farrell.
Good evening, and welcome to New Tracks Modeling, the live Zoom and YouTube show that airs every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Jim Kello, master model railroader and New Tracks mentor, founded New Tracks Modeling approximately 5 years ago. Jim established New Tracks Modeling to create a supportive educational community where mentors help modelers improve their skills. New Tracks Modeling extends beyond this live program. Our family of platforms include our Facebook page, our dedicated website, and the New Tracks Digital Modeler magazine. We're also excited to continue and grow our New Tracks Mentoring Scholarship Program, an initiative you'll hear more about later in the show. Everything we do is entirely free to our participants. Our entire team is made up of volunteers who support New Tracks Modeling and the model railroading community. One more thing about the show: we upload the show to YouTube after it ends, and the individual segments are posted separately later in the week on YouTube if you'd like to review them again. Before we get a full head of steam on this evening's program, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Brennan's Model Railroading.
Tonight's New Tracks Modeling Meetup is sponsored by Brennan's Model Railroading. For over 25 years, Brennan's Model Railroading has been offering unique products focused on the O-scale market. Their flagship product, Brennan's Better Ballast, was an instant hit and continues to be the industry leader. The prototypical size and natural color blend of real crushed granite make it the choice for discerning modelers. Since then, Brennan's has developed a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Brennan's also has craftsman kits that anyone can build. The complete photographically illustrated instructions assume you've never done this before, and explain in step-by-step detail how to create an outstanding model. The Frank Ellison Tribute series of kits are amazing additions to any layout. These kits take Frank Ellison's Scratchbuilt iconic structures to a new level using modern methods and materials with Dennis Brennan's additional details and amazing instructions. See the complete line of products on the Brennan's Model Railroading website. Use the QR code to visit.
I encourage you to support Brennan's Model Railroading. I recently did a build along a couple months ago on Gilbert's Power and Light, and it was a superb kit, and I consider it a bargain. It was at $159.95, a very comprehensive kit that is good for beginners and master model railroaders. One of the neat things about putting that kit together is I learned a couple things on construction of a kit that were actually quite unique. And so I encourage you to take a look at his website. He's got lots of products on there. Pick up a kit and indirectly support the show. Dennis Brennan supports not only the show, but he supports the digital magazine and the scholarship program. And now let's have a look at what's ahead for this evening's program. So try that again. Well, I can tell you verbally. There we go. It's tough to get good help. First up, we have News and Views G-Scale. Steve Bittenger, who's a longtime contributor to the show. He is always entertaining and a master model railroader, and he operates in G-Scale. He's got the Christians Ladies Social Club car, which is a very interesting freight car. And then we have in our Master Modeler series, our very own Kurt Thompson, who has supported the show also past couple years, building a prototype scene. And then all the way from Australia, Craig Veitch, part 2 of his scratch building a corrugated metal goods shed. Speaking of picking up some things I'd never seen before, as Jim Kello used to say, if you if you're watching the show and you don't pick up something, you really weren't listening. I'm certain we'll pick up a few additional skills watching Craig do part 2. And then I'm going to do one on installing Tortoise machines in 2-inch foam, which is not exactly easy, but I have a pretty good technique to share with you. But now before we start the show, I'd like to introduce Phil Edholm, our producer. We'll say a few words to encourage further participation for our live program from our Zoom and YouTube participants. Phil?
Thanks, Tom. You guys are going to get this. I would try to do this probably every couple of weeks, but really do need folks to come forward. Tonight we have 2 participants who came forward and said, "Hey, I'll do a presentation." So, and they're both great, and so I think that's a good indication that there are a lot more of those out there. So, what we're going to try to do is basically, click on this URL on the QR code, or put in tinyurl NTM present, and just go in. It just takes a couple of minutes to fill a little form, and then come on and do a presentation. We'll, just send your pictures in. It'll turn out really good. So thanks, Tom. That was all I wanted to do. Ask folks to take the time to become part of the show and become a mentor. Take your skills and hand them on. That's half the fun of the hobby. Anyway, back to you.
Yeah, and like I say, we want variety. We don't just want it to be our regulars or myself, but it takes the stress off of things. All right, before we start the show, before we get rolling down those tracks, we'd like to highlight our New Tracks Modeling Scholarship Program. And here's a brief video and introduction on that initiative.
The New Tracks Modeling Mentoring Scholarship is the only national scholarship for model railroaders from a volunteer nonprofit organization. For academic year 2025-26, we are awarding 4 $2,000 scholarships for model railroaders pursuing a STEAM degree. We hope to award a similar number of scholarships for the 2026-27 academic year. We believe it is critical to support the next generation of model railroaders. You can support the New Tracks Modeling Mentoring Scholarship by donating online using the Zephy platform or directly by check. All donations are tax deductible.
I assume that's technical difficulties on Phil's side. I just want to say a few words on the scholarship, then we'll begin this evening's program. As I said in the last 3 shows, we want to emphasize getting additional scholarship applications. So let's make this a grassroots drive. If you know a high school student that's about to enter college, or a student who's in college and is in a STEM program, we encourage you to contact them, to go on our website and apply for our scholarship. we'd like to have more people to pick from. Not that we want to turn people down, but the question right now isn't necessarily raising the funds. We have enough funds to cover those 4 scholarships. Of course, we want to build on that so we could either offer larger scholarships, more scholarships, or cover next year. But let's spend a little time between now and the end of the year encouraging people to get ready to apply for the 2026 scholarship. So I'd like to begin the show, and the first presentation is Steve Bittenger. Assume he's on here. I didn't see him in the pre-show, but there he is. I hear his laugh.
Where?
There they are. The A-team.
Are we tuned in?
We're tuned in, and thank you again for you too, Steve. Even Stever.
Steve.
And I'll just turn it over to you guys. You do a wonderful job, and thank you for participating.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the West Virginia Workshop. And first off, I want to tell you, I hate to disappoint you, but Tom posted tonight's program as featuring the Christian Ladies Social Club car. However, it's not here tonight. It's going to have some modifications to be acceptable for broadcast. So instead of that, you get Steve Sherrill. He's filling in that respect. So Steve and I are co-hosting tonight. On here, we've got Andy up behind the camera, taking care of everything that we need to do. So tonight's show is going to be a truly G-scale night. Sometimes I do things about building structures and all sorts of things, but tonight's going to be specifically one thing that outdoor G-scale people have is when the seasons change, it's time to go down and do some stuff on your outdoor railroad. You know, fall comes and winter is right behind it. So you need to get out in the fall, prep some stuff up for what's going to come this winter. So Steve and I are going to kind of run through some of the different things that indoor layout also. So I appreciate the differences. You know, indoor, you just turn the lights out and go to bed. It's much simpler. So the first thing we're going to talk to you a little bit about is your plants. Typically, on most G-scale outdoor layouts, you've got a mixture of plants. You have ground covers, you have upright trees, and those trees are going to be everything from conifers with needles to regular, what do you call it, herbaceous woody trees with lots of big leaves. You also get all the leaves that Mother Nature blows in from who knows where. Your neighbors, you name it, they all come to visit your railroad about fall. We've had some extremely windy weather for the last week or so, so I put off getting out there and doing anything. It's hopeless until the weather calms down. So having said that, first thing off, fall. You got to feed your plants in the fall for next spring. Next spring, you can do it, but the best feeding time is in the fall. So I'm going to show you a couple of products. First of all, and this applies to not just the garden railroad, outdoor G-scale layouts, but anybody. I call this fern juice. It's called fern fertilizer. I bought this one through Tractor Supply Company. It's pretty reasonable. This is a concentrate you mix in water. It's for acid-loving plants and moss, ferns, small ground covers. Evergreens love this stuff. It's one of the best products out there. It's not expensive, but it does a great job on the layout. Second item, for all the other plants, this is what I use, this one right here. If I shake it, you can hear what we have. Inside here, you gotta put your hands out there a minute. Balanced. There you go. He's got it there in his hands. What we have are these little pellets, and these are slow release pellets. This is like a 10-10-10 fertilizer. This one's made by Miracle Grow. You don't put this stuff on real heavy. You can just walk around, lightly sprinkling it, because these things are going to dissolve and they're going to spread out over all your vegetation. It's an easy way to do it. It's a long performance. Next spring, don't have to do anything. You're already done because you've done this in the fall.
Don't get confused. These are not the goat pellets, okay?
That's right. Goats didn't have anything to do with producing that type of stuff. So it's always at your house. You know how you plant shrubbery at your house, and these little tiny plants, and you nurse them along, hoping they grow, and you feed them. And then like 3 years later, they're overwhelming your house, and you wonder, why did I plant all these things that I got to trim back now? That's exactly how it is on the railroad. So what do you trim with? What kind of tools are we going to use? Good set of good strong jaw clippers. These, especially for bushes that are woody bushes, in other words, they grow up, they have a ball shape around them. When you trim those plants, I give them the haircut on top and on the sides, because they will grow in over your right of way to the point where they're rubbing on the cars and equipment. You trim it back. If you've ever looked at a railroad right of way, you'll notice lots of vegetation along railroad right of ways. You see it everywhere. So the ideal shape you're looking for is where the vegetation is up and creates a canopy over your railroad. Not to the point where you don't see your trains, but I like it where some of the vegetation is between me and the tracks, and some of it is behind the tracks. It's much more effective than just having the track presented in front of you. It doesn't give any depth to your operation. So this type of shear does the trick on those. Alberta spruce is one of the most common plants used by G-scale guys. These are compact little guys. You can get them in two versions. You can get dwarf Alberta spruce and dwarf Alberta spruce. A typical Alberta spruce, when you get them, buy the ones that are 10 to 12 inches tall in the little pots. In a year's time or two, they're going to be like 24 inches tall, and you're going to be trimming those. Dwarfs, they'll be about 3 to 4 inches tall. They will never get more than 6 inches in their lifetime. They'll stay quite small. So it's kind of interesting if you plant the bigger ones. And the little dwarfs, it looks like these are the seedlings that grew along naturally next to your railroad. So how do you trim the Albertas? Well, if you do this, you're going to be out there forever. The best way now is something like one of these. This is Ryobi's, what do you call it, the hedge trimmer type deal. All right, battery powered. You want a kind of cone shape to those trees. So you start at the bottoms. I start first with these. I take enough branches from the bottoms that you see the trunk for about the first 3 to 4 inches. Then you start, shave them up, just go right around them to get to a point in the top. They'll look a little, I don't know, too well groomed if you leave them like that. You want to come back later, either with your shears, or actually sometimes I'll just cut into the tree, into the branches quickly and back, left, right, left, right. That'll make open spots, make the limbs look storied or layered, much more natural than if everything is just one tight cone. We're not trying to create topiaries. We're trying to make them look like real miniature small trees. Next thing along, cleaning the layout of leaves, debris, and twigs. How do we get rid of all this stuff? So let me show you an example of all the stuff that gets on your layout. This is the worst one of all. If Andy has that on there, we can see it. I'll take his judgment for it that we do. Long needle pine. Shop vacs are hopeless with this type of thing. It'll get in the pipes on your shop vacs and it'll just jam up in a ball, and then you'll find yourself trying to clean out the pipe and spending more time doing that than cleaning up pine needles. The next typical type of vegetation, this is typical small leaves. This is from a redbud tree, which happens to be close by my railroad. We get maple from our neighbors. You get all types of various trees in the fall. These are very light. These are feathery. Easy to deal with those, except when they get wet. When they get wet, like these guys, and they're wet. I picked those up outside because we had rain last night. This is hopeless to try to clean up. You'll get nowhere unless you're going to personally just go around and pick every one of them up. The blower isn't going to do the trick on something like this. It's just not going to work. Best bet, how do you use the blower on the layout? And I'll say 29 years of experience. I learned to master how to use the blower. So I'll show you one. Steve will tell you about. He's got a small blower he bought recently. What's the details on your small blower?
I got a turbo blower. It's a pretty new product. And it's very powerful. I got mine from Walmart, and it was $39. It comes with 2 batteries, a couple attachments that go on the end. It comes with earplugs because they are kind of loud. The decibels are kind of high. Very effective piece of equipment. I also take it with me to the golf course to blow the greens off and get the leaves off when I'm trying to putt. So that's a practical purpose.
Yep. So, for example, on my layout, which the cross section is about 16 to 20 feet across from side to side, I have to get up in the middle. I go up in the middle. Here's my blower that I use, this guy. I get up in the middle of the layout. I'm going to take and blow everything that direction I can. I'm going to turn around and blow everything that direction, working from the center to the right and to the left. Just keep working it out in a radius, getting it away from the railroad. If you're trying to blow from here lengthwise, you have a section of track, right? Going down the track like that isn't really going to work all that good. You end up with a pile at the end and nowhere to go with it, especially radiuses and curves, track's not straight. So you're better off doing that. These things are pretty, this is Ego's model. And I'll show you the difference here one time.
Wow,
That worked good.
that really works.
I didn't get his hat off there, sorry.
Hey,
But look at that. We got everything clean in what, 2 seconds?
Yep.
So a good, powerful blower, no substitute. There's no electric cord to drag around, no hose to hit, knock your buildings over, break up your detail stuff. And as long as you don't step on stuff, you're in good shape.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Next thing up, treating structures for pests. I'm not talking about the neighbors. So here we go. This is a hand car shed, typical open structure. This has a welcome sign, it hangs out front. I think it says, "Come on, all you bees and wasps and spiders, move in here. This is the place you're going to live this year." And literally, that's what you have. So lots of times they'll get in there, you don't even know they're there until one day you unfortunately come too close and here they come flying out after you. I have learned to take something like this, which is typical Raid or Spectracide products. And what you want to do is get in here and soak the sidewalls in here really good with this product. You want to spray under the eaves because they like to build their little nest up under there. Also, if you spray up under the eaves, the rain does not take that away. It's protected by the overhang on the roof. Spraying around the bottoms doesn't do near as good. For example, we have a window on the front and sides. Yes, I saturate around those. I can see that the wasp will fly up. They sense that spray on them. You'll see them back away and hover. They'll try a couple of times and then they'll just leave that alone. They'll go somewhere else. So this is a good product to use, and you use it actually in the fall. I'll put it on there now and let it coat and stay on there by springtime. I've already got my barrier, the fresh crop of insects that show up. I swear the one generation tells the next generation where they lived last year, and they all come back to join you on your layout. You also have vegetation control. So let me get the track back one more time, Steve.
Okay.
And I'll give this thing here to Steve. And we came up with this thing. He'll show you what you're going to do with that. This is a regular funnel.
Regular funnel, end cutoff.
Yeah. So that's what we want. So if he aims that down at the track, he can get really close and just go right along. Right. He's not going to be spraying this stuff all over the place. This is an excellent product, RM18, Tractor Supply. This is about $37 for this container of concentrate. This will last me 2 years because you're mixing it with water, and it does an excellent job. It'll do, I don't know, 2 treatments a year, and you won't have any weeds or vegetation. Typical stuff I have trouble with is dandelions. They are really persistent. You'll get some moss forming in your track. Some people like the look of that, which is fine. You know, that's up to you. We're battery powered, so it's not a problem with our wiring and things like that. If you're track powered, just about any vegetation is going to be a problem for you. So this you mix, use a sprayer. If you have a small battery pack sprayer, you can, but the longer nozzle type sprayers, they'll drift in the wind as you're going. This little cone, and you're getting right down on the subject, much easier, and you won't get carried away with too much of this at one time. And our next subject up is varmints on the railroad. Varmints on, we have plenty of varmints, big ones down to little ones. So for the big guys, and I had a big guy this year I had to deal with. This is typical cage for catching the big guys, right? So who's going to be on the railroad? See,
Groundhogs,
skunks,
squirrels,
possums,
raccoons.
the neighbor's cat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Neighbor's dog.
neighbor's dog, maybe even. All these creatures that are going to come and mess with your layout. For these, I've found the best bait is almost all of these guys love peaches for some reason. And they, right?
Apples, up with apples.
Apples and
Mine.
peaches will lure them in. You catch them. My wife insists I don't kill these creatures. I haul them about 3 miles away and turn them loose. A friend of ours told me, how do I know that they don't come back? I said, oh, older lady showed me one time. So I caught 27 squirrels 2 years ago. I have this white spray paint. I spray paint their tails white and let them loose. Then if I see any squirrels in the yard, I know I didn't take them far enough away because I shouldn't have any more white-tailed squirrels running around my railroad. So this is what we're using for that. Is the
that cage costs about $30 maybe.
30 to 40 bucks for the
Yeah.
have a heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty durable. Oh, pretty durable. That we just caught one. All right, then we get down to the little creatures, the little guys, and Steve's going to show you what we have here. This is my Tractor Supply $1.99 mouse traps.
Yeah.
He's loading it up here right now.
I think.
He's trying. And the interesting part about these is you get 2 in a pack of these little guys. So they're almost freebies. You gonna put your peanut butter on first or no?
Well,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
you take your peanut butter, obviously, and put the peanut butter on the little trap mechanism here, the other part, and they just can't resist it. You do this before you set the trap.
Yeah, that's fine.
I also use a cheese. So I'm being very careful because, okay, it doesn't take very much. These guys are hungry,
That's right.
you know, and they're out and they catch a whiff of this stuff and they just go nuts. They got to have it.
Right where my railroad goes from outdoors to indoors, I have a trap before the tunnel face and the door, and I have one on the inside because last year they chewed a hole through the tunnel door. I think I caught more inside than I did outside. Just catch them as they come in. So I'm gonna pick this up carefully.
Mhm.
Here's what's handy about these in G-scale. They will fit like that, perfect, right between your rails, so they don't move around. Otherwise, these things will end up flipping over in the wind or something. They go off. You walk out there, boom, there they lay. But right in here, if you have to do anything, you sand just a tiny bit on one side of this thing, she'll drop right back down in there for you. So you're all set. Anything you got to do is, I'd say you check them like every 3 to 4 days, go out and see what's happening.
Now you can,
See what you caught.
you can paint them like Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and looky here. That he already smelled it. Look.
Here we come.
Here comes the mouse. He's already smelled the peanut butter. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
Oh,
we
got him.
He's out.
Got him.
He's out. So there you go. Satisfaction guaranteed on our railroad. But this is all the stuff you deal with in outdoor railroading. So any questions? We'll be glad to answer about any of these subjects.
Is your railroad shut down now with the inclement weather, or are you still running it?
You know what? Last week we had some incredibly warm days, so like 2 days in a row. It's really tempting to go out there and run. I had already put the insulation plugs in the tunnels and put the doors down. I thought, nah, I'd like to run, but I'm not going to go out there and open everything up, and then I got to put it all back away again. So I'm just operating on the indoors right now.
Indoor model railroaders right
Yeah.
now. Yes.
This is
go ahead.
scratch building begins winter.
Yeah, I was going to say that was my next question. Which projects do you envision this winter?
Today I was on the phone with Charles Rowe, ordered a whole bunch of parts, detail parts for an S6 I'm building. Then I have a GP30 that I've been working on since last April, and it's just about done. So 2 locomotives and 1 more structure that's going to be added to some of the new bench work area. Oh, I'll show you a project. So, since you didn't get to see the Christian ladies' car, we'll show you this.
Project. Oh my God. Project. Oh.
So we're doing a remodel on a 100-year-old house at the moment. I'm using this pink foam in the exterior walls for insulation. So I have a whole bunch of scraps lately, pink foam, and this is a 1.5-inch foam and some rips on the back side. The reason I have these rips on the back side is I'm going to plant sedum trees behind this. So here you go. Here's what the other side looks like. All right, and my sedum is going to be standing up along this wall behind it. I've only got 2 inches to work in from the behind the track to the wall of the house in the rail yard. So there's my 2 inches. And as soon as the sedums are clipped, I brought the plants in today, let them dry. Steve's been out getting sedum.
Yeah. We may not see them run.
Yeah, we have. Sedums have been a little hard to come by this year. So I don't know what happened, but I just used leftover stains and some paint that I didn't buy anything for this. This is leftover foam and leftover stain. And I just used a dull pencil and made the stain.
Looks pretty good, Steve.
Looks really nice, really good.
Looks pretty good.
There you go. Look
Wow.
good. Look good on Tom Farrell's railroad.
Be a big wall.
Oh, some GN15 work
Yeah.
for indoor T-scale.
Yeah. That's it for tonight. That's it for anything worth out.
Well, we'll see you in a few weeks, and hopefully
Okay.
for the holidays, we'll squeeze in one more show.
Yep. I think we'll see you next month, I believe, like second weekend or something like that.
Terrific.
Maybe we'll have snow. I'll take some snow pictures of the trains in the snow.
Clean it off the track.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve and Steve, for this issue of Gardening with Steve and Steve. Okay.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you again. Next up, we have Kurt Thompson, Master Modeler Series, building a prototype scene. But before we see Kurt, we're going to run the My Build video and have some words from Chris Corse.
Don't miss the monthly New Tracks Modeling My Build event. My Build is where the modelers of New Tracks show what they have been building. See amazing modeling with some My Builds featuring specific topics for modeling. If you would like to have your models included in the My Build, please email your modeling photos to Chris Corse at railrunner130@hotmail.com. If you are a first-time My Build participant, please include a photo of yourself.
Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Tom.
Tell us a little about what's coming up on the future My Builds.
All right, we can do that. All right. So next week, we have an Anything Goes show. That'll be November 26th. Please get your photos to me by Sunday. That way I can get them all put into the slideshow and in proper order. We've got so far 3 participants, and actually that'll be a nice chunk of time, but we can always use more. I'd love to hog the show and make it as long as I can, especially since November 26th is the day before Thanksgiving. So, we can, I think we can all afford to stay up a little extra late on the 26th. So anyway, if you have not participated in the My Builds in the past, please send your photos to me at railrunner130@hotmail.com and make sure that you put your a photo of yourself in for your title slide, and make sure that you also please include a brief description of what we're looking at, including the scale. That way, in the event that you're either you don't feel comfortable presenting, or maybe you're not sure you're going to be able to get on Zoom, whatever the reason, maybe you can't even be at the show, but you still want to participate. It doesn't matter the reason, but if please include a description. That way I can talk a little bit intelligently about what I'm looking at, or what we're all looking at. So anyway, I will turn it back over to you, Tom.
We have the slide, Phil, that shows the railrunner.com email.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. The theory of the My Build segment is that it does, in fact, take the entire show, relieving a little pressure off of Phil and I to fill the show each and every week with a segment. And the advantage of that My Build is first-time presenters have an easy way to get on the show, and with very little effort. You simply email your photos to Chris, and he'll put them in a PowerPoint. And you need only say, next slide, next slide, next slide, and you're in business. And if for whatever reason you can't make the show, Chris will be happy to talk about your presentation with a little text on your behalf. But use it as an opportunity to showcase your work or your technique for a particular modeling skill. And let's see if we can fill it for at least an hour or more next week. Right?
Yes, indeed.
And I've been seeing Chris's thank you for that pronunciation.
Conowingo models, yes.
Conowingo models, the 4-pack, all over the Facebook and internet. Little plug for yourself while you're here.
Yes, thanks. Actually, the second 4-pack of the Old West style background flats is available now on the website. Go to conowingomodels.com, and I can put that in the chat also. And I'm working on the third set right now. So I ran into an issue with one of the buildings not being as easy to build as I wanted it. So we're going to redo it. And once we get that figured out, I'm actually pretty excited about the third set, because it's got a chapel in there that is really, it's just a neat little building. Hello, Anna. Say hi to everybody in the land of New Tracks Modeling.
Hi. Can I have all your cookies?
No cookies. This is a no cookie show.
Yeah.
You heard that. Tom said no cookies.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
Okay. Next up, we have Kurt Thompson, Master Modeler Series, Building a Prototype Scene. Kurt, I know you're here. I saw you.
Would help if I came off of mute, perhaps.
We could spotlight Kurt. Welcome to the show. It's been a while. I appreciate you being on. And what do you have for us this evening?
Well, I'm going to talk about my current layout project, which is an O-scale representation of the Brook Avenue, Chesapeake, Ohio facility. It was in Norfolk, and it was rail isolated and barge served from Newport News. So it's not quite what people would think of when you think of Norfolk, that you would think of C&O, but C&O snuck in the back door on Norfolk and Western.
All right, let's go.
All right. Well, as it says, I've moved to O scale about 9 years ago from HO after many years, decades in HO. For this layout, I'm going to try and tackling it as a Proto 48 gauge layout, which means I'm pretty much hand laying all the track and all the switches. But the freight cars that I've had prior to are just a matter of changing out the trucks to Proto 48 trucks. So next. So if you're asking where Brook Avenue is or was, if you look up at the map where it says Kings Lincoln Park Fishing Pier, that area, well, that's where Newport News CNO, now CSX facility is. And they would literally barge the cars to the Freemason area, which was highlighted a second ago. And that is a current picture, Google Sky View of Freemason Harbor, which is where Brook Avenue was. And what you see is a whole bunch of condominiums, not much freight anymore. Next. And of course, what study of a facility doesn't work well with a Sanborn map or two. So this is the major signature structures, I should say, at the facility were the CNO Freight House, Bush Cold Storage, Southgate Terminal Warehouse 1, a 60,000-gallon molasses tank, the Ocean Terminal, and the one black spot leading upward is Terminal Warehouse 2, which I'm not bothering with. So next. And here is the not overlay, but the side by side. You can see how the current facility, the current condominiums overlap with the original facility. And this is another one that is an older one. This is an aerial view looking east. And I can date the picture pretty much because if you look in front of the molasses tank, which is center picture, you'll see a coaling tower. And originally Brook Avenue was using 060 steamers, steam locomotives, for all the switching. So they had to have their own coaling tower. They didn't have a water tower. They just used a standpipe up and into the back of the tender. Next. And this one is from 1952, another aerial view, but you can see that the coaling tower is gone, and which means that their GE 44 tonner is now the denizen of Brook Avenue and doing all the switching. And you can see from this the size of Terminal Warehouse 1 along the top edge of the photo, and then the CNO Freight House, which has a 2-story segment and 4 times the length of the 1st-story segment for the freight house. And then Bush Cold Storage are the 3 stacked buildings to the right edge. Next. And this is kind of a before and after photo, or actually an after and before photo of the 60,000-gallon molasses tank. The right-hand photo is from the 1920s, and you can see the structure and the piping. It was piped, molasses was piped, brought in and piped into the tank, and then it was distributed by truck outside the property for local feed mills. So it was used as a cattle feed additive. The left-hand picture, unfortunately, is taken somewhere between 1982 and 1983, which is when the facility had shut down in 82 and they started dismantling it. And because you look at those 8 legs under the tank, those are 18-inch square reinforced concrete pillars. And ultimately, they have built a little peace pagoda out of those, which, I'll show in another segment later. And also in the left-hand photo, that's the near side of the freight warehouse, and you can see the freight station and how long it really was. It's quite lengthy. Next. All right. Here is the 44 tonner again, standing in front of the heart of the Southgate Terminal warehouse. They did renumber it from number 1, which I thought was a gift. They renumbered it to 8003, and but it's still a C&O, and it's was the power to the very end of the operations. Next. I mentioned earlier about the steam locomotives. There were 3 C6 class switchers that were saved from the Hocking Valley and were brought down and used interchangeably over at Brook Avenue. There was, as I said, there was a coaling tower and a standpipe for water, but all service was done at Newport News. So the first barge in Monday morning, they had the switcher on there, and it was already at steam, so had to require full crew. And the last barge out Friday night, they put the 060 on it and barged it over. And as you can see from the apron, how much deflection there is as they were trying to unload it. But from all I can tell, the apron held, and it was a routine operation to ship the steamer back and forth, and then the 44 tonner later. Next. And here's another photo of number 1 when it was still the number 1 engine. And in the background, you're looking southeast. That is Bush's cold storage in the background. Go ahead. And as I said previously, the Brook Avenue facility was rail isolated. Its only connection to the world was through car floats from Newport News. My layout will have a truncated car float, but it will not be this one with that superstructure on it. The nice thing about this photo is it gave me information on at least 3 cars in particular that were at Brook Avenue at some point. A 50-foot gondola from Lehigh Valley, a horizontal Milwaukee Road box 40-footer. And if you look down the string of cars there, you see a lot of height changes from 36-foot reefers to 40-foot box cars to, just the whole jagged roof line there. So variety in cars is pretty widespread. Next. Next slide, please. Can I have the next slide? Okay. C&O even invested in building new car floats in the late 30s, early 40s. They built the biggest of the bigs for C&O. They built car float number 5. And car float number 5 was 370 feet in length, had a beam of about 17 feet, and as you can see, it was 4 tracks wide and could carry between 28 and 32 cars per load. The really nice thing about this photo is it shows you the details of the guardrails because the switches were really split. Most of them were on the apron, but you can see the tracks had just barely broached the frog before they were on the barge. And all the rails were welded to what are called rail chairs, but the rail chairs were first welded onto the barge itself. And that comes into play when I built my model of it. Next. All right, little questions here. If you're dealing with a barge, what's the most likely problem to occur? You would think that it would be a car or a locomotive in the Elizabeth River, but you would be wrong. I found no evidence of that, but I did find evidence of someone driving the 44-tonner out the east end fence and parking it in the middle of Bush Avenue. I'm not going to have an operating fence collapse like that on my layout, but it would be prototypical. But what I will have is a copy of the billboard in the picture, because that is prominent in a couple other pictures that I have looking to the east end. So, and that's a Wabash boxcar there too. Next. Now, since Brook Avenue was mainly an inbound freight facility, I had to do a lot of tracking of cars, that I could see in all the photos from the C&O archives and other places. And I couldn't always get road numbers, but I got some, but I did get car types, railroads, designations, things like that. Next. And the other nice thing is the industry guide that the OPSIG has on their website has open access area, is you can search whatever region of the country you want to use. For me, I was using the Southeast, which has the Virginia, and I subset that to Norfolk and parsed out all the industries in Norfolk that received freight. And then from that, parsed out only the ones that were serviced by C&O. And at one time or another, these were all leasers of space in the terminal warehouse, because what Southgate Terminal 1 and 2 were basically the equivalent of modern day logistic warehouses. They were owned by Southgate, which was a subsidiary of C&O, and then leased to various companies like Cudahy Packing was one, Heinz was another one. And you'll see cars and auto dealers here. They were brought over in cars, in box cars, and loaded in the facility and then driven into town to the dealership. But so there's a lot of various companies, a lot of various goods. And between that and the photos of the cars, I can try and then backtrack reasonable loading, waybills for the operation when I am operating the layout. Next. And at that point, for next week, we will be talking about what the modeling part that I'm working on now.
Very interesting. I'm sure you're aware, Kurt, that that's the largest naval base in the world there.
I have served at that naval base for a while too.
My son did his internship at the Naval Medical Center in Portsmouth. So I spent a little bit of time myself over there.
Well, if you stand at the end of the condominium row, Portsmouth Naval Hospital is just a little to the left of where that white building is in the picture. Portsmouth Naval Hospital Center is about there.
Yeah, and that's where I've been, and my son has. It's a huge facility, and now there's always at least 3 or 4 nuclear carriers lined up there. It's quite an impressive place. And these
I was more impressed with the nuclear subs that I was serving with.
the steely-eyed killers of the deep.
Yeah, there's submarines and there are targets. Take your choice.
Yeah. And the historic photos there, the one behind you, a lot of opportunities for rail. I was just checking Google Maps. There's still an immense rail yard there.
In Newport News, yes.
Yeah, in present day. Yeah.
Yeah. That didn't go away, but this is, I always joke, this is Brook Avenue might as well have been milepost minus 10 on the Peninsula Division, because it literally was 10 miles east of Newport News, which was the 0 point for the CNO.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. A little history, and then next week we get a little modeling, correct?
Yeah, you'll get to see the disaster that is my train room.
Speaking of history, could you go back to the slide that showed the tank, the before and after picture of the tank?
Okay. I have to leave that to the producer.
It was one of the earlier slides.
Kurt, why was the tank elevated? Was it used as a siphon tank, or what was the purpose of not having it on the ground?
Well, I don't really know for sure, other than I think that it was just easier for them. It was easier to pump the molasses up and then just gravity feed it into the tankers that were parked on behind Warehouse 1 out on Tazewell Street.
There it is.
Yeah.
And the reason I mentioned it and wanted to see it again is perhaps inadvertently, you've got a picture in that right-hand picture of a very rare piece of equipment. That's a Lehigh Valley Railroad wrong way door boxcar. Notice that the door slides to the left rather than the right. Nobody can explain why they were built that way. They may have been a modification of a double door car, but this is the earliest picture I've ever seen of the wrong way door boxcar. They were all rebuilt in the 1930s to give them steel ends, but here it is with wood ends and the wrong way doors. Just an unusual car.
This photo came from I think this one was out of my stuff that I found at the Norfolk Historical Society website, the right-hand picture. I know the left-hand picture is out of that because they had all that for the urban renewal where they wiped out Brook Avenue. But yes, I'm intrigued by the Lehigh Valley car, but I probably will not have time to build one.
No, I in the past, when I was in HO, modeled the Lehigh Valley extensively, including a model of a wrong way door boxcar, but in the 1930s version after it had been modified. And I had not previously seen a photograph of them before they were rebuilt. Just a coincidence that it showed up there.
So there was a question popped up from Mike Turner. Was it steam heated? Yes, when in the interim, there was a corrugated building that encased the legs, and inside it was, heating equipment to heat the molasses. So, it would flow in January as needed.
Very interesting. Wrong way door boxcar. Another little bit of information learned this evening on New Tracks modeling from Jeff Jordan. Well, thank you, Kurt. Great job. And we look forward to your modeling next week. And appreciate it. Next up, all the way from Australia, a return of Craig Veitch, a scratch-built corrugated metal goods shed. Before we have Craig on, though, we'd like a little video on our New Tracks Modeler magazine.
Get more New Tracks modeling by reading the New Tracks Modeler magazine. Each edition of New Tracks Modeler includes exciting articles about modeling shown on the show, other modeling topics, and prototypical railroading information. Other articles focus on outstanding model railroaders and new products from a range of suppliers. Don't miss the photos of the popular New Tracks My Build. You can download New Tracks Modeler for free from the New Tracks Modeling website. Subscribe so you don't miss an issue.
Well, next up, as I indicated, Craig, I know you're on.
I am, yes.
welcome to the show again. Appreciate you being our international contingent, although think of you guys as just partners like Canada.
Yeah, just a little bit further away, that's all.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, welcome to the show, and why don't we just begin? Yeah.
Okay,
This is
then.
part 2 for everybody. Yeah.
Yep. So last week I closed with the internal lumber framing being fitted to the corrugated side of the styrene shell. This week it's going to be looking at fabrication of the remaining components, assembling the shed, and then setting the shed on the layout as it sits there. You can see. Next slide. I just wanted to return to the framing, because a thing I didn't mention last week was that the sides fit within the ends. And so the corner posts for the shed are actually sitting on the sides, and then it butts up against the inset frame at the ends, so that I end up being able to glue the corner posts that are on the sides to both the corrugated styrene as well as the horizontal frame members, giving us the strongest possible joint. And again, the same as I mentioned last week, running a bead of matte medium down through all of the joints. Next slide. So oh, I see. This slide has become 2 slides. Well, so you can see the corner post now on the roadside wall, and then how that would slot into the ends. Next slide. There we go. I used this little jig to cut the metal sheets for the external cladding. So it allows me to cut them square and to a consistent scale width. I originally started out with old corrugated sheet metal, at least used by New South Wales government railways, was 2'6" wide, with an overlap to give 2-foot wide panels visible. But they then at some point widened those sheets out to 3 feet with then a 2'6" wide visible part. So I started out with the 2'6" and found that that was just unbelievably finicky. So I quickly changed to using 3 feet wide. Only those people who count ribs on corrugated iron are likely to say, oh, you have got too few sheets for a shed built in 1923. And they'll be shown the door and reminded to shut the gate on their way out. So all of this stuff I cut with a utility knife, and every 30 cuts or so I'd change the blade. A little bit of an aside here. I was somewhat disappointed with the quality of this material. The metal is quite thin, and so the corrugations on some of the strips, were barely evident. And on top of that, sometimes the strips weren't cut square to the corrugation. So I had to spend a fair bit of time first cutting the strips longitudinally to get the corrugations square, and then deleting those parts where the corrugations were almost non-existent. So ultimately, I think I probably threw away about 30 to 40% of the total quantity that I'd purchased. So at some point, I sort of cut my losses a bit and thought, well, I'll put up with some of these flatter pieces, like you can see on the piece that's about to be cut, but it just doesn't have the depth or the neatness of the corrugations. So we came for a bit of a compromise there. Next slide. So this is the external cladding being secured to the shell. I used spray-on contact adhesive for this, and then I applied the individual sheets one row at a time. And firstly, that was as much as I could do before the adhesive dried beyond a useful point. But more importantly, it allowed me to overspray the top few millimetres of the underlying sheets, so that I could get tightly bonded, visually convincing overlaps. I found on the first model I built, I hadn't been able to glue that overlap point, and sometimes the sheets just lifted to an unconvincing amount for a shed that was still in use. And then the door and the window openings were cut at this point, and from the inside. So using actually the styrene shell as the guide for the knife to cut through, and then a little bit of tidying up as necessary. Next slide. So it became time to paint. So the first thing was just to really clean it. I used IPA and a stiff bristled brush to really get in and clean the grease off, and also at times to put a little bit of tooth into the metal. Then it was sprayed with grey primer and followed with Tamiya light grey matte. And at this point, I fitted the door and window trims, again, obviously board by board. And I fit the top and the bottom first, and then slide the sides in so that you get a nice, firm and clean corner. No risk of the top sagging or anything. And then everything was given the trims had already been given a very thin coat of the colour. And by using a thin down coat over the pre-stained wood, you end up with a neatly convincing, I think, weathered look to the material. It's got some darkness coming through on the colour, and the colour looks a bit washed out. Next slide. I'm no good at using manufactured or commercial window frames. First of all, I can't even work out what size fits where and how. But also, New South Wales government railways don't exactly go with any kind of standard anyway. So the windows on the prototype, people may remember from last week, were a single pane of glass, perhaps frosted. The plan of similar sheds, the so-called standard plan, showed 12-pane windows. Well, given how little money was spent on this branch line, it was unlikely they were going to get fancy 12-pane windows. But I decided to use 2-pane windows simply to provide, again, a little bit of visual interest to otherwise pretty plain-sided buildings. So I began by cutting 5 thou clear styrene, and that fitted snugly within the window trims. And then I built the frames, again, board by board, inside and out. So you end up with a fully framed piece of clear acetate, styrene. Probably, just to extend a bit on the New South Wales Government Railways standard plans, I think they were used as guides only. Maybe that was all they were ever meant to be, because so many examples of standard designs on the New South Wales railways are anything but standard. And I think that probably reflects contractors using locally available materials, and perhaps also including or trying to include the local vernacular, either adding brickwork or stonework or a little bit of colour that wasn't necessarily New South Wales government standard. Next slide. So the one thing I noticed in the colour photo of the shed was how much the material varied in tone and also shade. So I decided to age the paintwork And I did this by randomly dabbing IPA onto individual sheets and allowing that IPA to sit for a moment before rubbing it off with a dry, stiff brush. The IPA softens the colour coat. Certainly don't want to go in and cut all the paint out. It softens the colour coat enough that some can be removed. And I found the Tamiya light grey, probably like most commercial greys, has a blue base. And that blue base didn't seem to come away as much as some of the other tints in the colour. And so we ended up with a colour that looks quite similar to old style galvanised metal, or it's certainly the old style galvanised metal that I see around, including on our sheds on the property here. So I think it worked rather well. And the great thing is that you can get considerable variation in the tone and the extent of this technique by using different amounts of IPA, varying how long it sits on the paint, how hard the softened paint is then rubbed with the brush, and how much of each sheet's exposed to the process. So looking at that there, I'm quite happy with that result. But now let's have a little look and see how it compares with the prototype. Next slide. So, you know, they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I think that looks fairly convincing. And again, another note on New South Wales government railways and their standards. They changed colour schemes for stations and other structures from time to time. And at one point, trims on goods sheds and other structures were the colour depicted on the model. But given the Railway Commissioner's antipathy towards this branch, I suspect that shed never received any of the standard colour designs at all. And it's probably just bare timber, or at best a quick coat of undercoat or something. Next slide. Sorry about this. This is a busy slide, I think. This might be now on 3, which might make it less busy. But it's just the process of making the deck board by board. So beginning with the deck timbers, I used a brass bar to first push each board firmly up against the growing deck. And then after 4 or 5 boards had been added, I held the edge of the new deck in place with some track spikes and put the bar on top to weigh the strips down until the glue set. I had planned to cut the deck boards into 16-foot lengths or something around 16 feet so that they joined over rafters. However, between that planning and action, I forgot to do it. So I ended up scribing joint lines on the deck. Next slide. Yeah. So then the next thing was to calculate how many rafters I needed to add under the deck at approximately 18 scale inch centres. And then I cut a strip of styrene to the width between rafters to create that near 18 scale inch centre. And then I worked inwards from each side so that if there was an error in my calculation and or just fitting the things in place, some of the timber varies a little bit, there'd be just one gap somewhere either too narrow or too wide, somewhere near the centre of the deck. And when that was in place in the shed, nobody would be able to spot it. So that's the way I use to hide variations. Next slide, which is just 3 bearers, the process of fitting 3 bearers to the rafters. The prototype only had 2 bearers, the one at the front of the deck, as can be seen, and the one that's now being fitted, because the deck was attached to the inside framing of the shed. I wasn't planning to attach the deck to the shed itself, so I put another rafter right at the back of the deck and parked it on some little piers that I also added in under the floor. Next slide. The plan for the standard shed shows a little office in one corner of the shed. It didn't have full height walls and it didn't have a ceiling. And I'm just in this board by board manufacture stuff at present. I really actually don't like scribed timber sheet. I'd rather do it board by board. Anyway, I made the walls and the door for it all board by board. And then out of a bit of madness, I guess, I added a little chalkboard on the inside wall of the office and then later also on the outside wall. But I decided against adding furniture. It did cross my mind to have a shot, and then I thought, well, it's not a contest model; it's a working model, so no added furniture. Next slide. The doors again. This is coming off the standard because I didn't have a photo of what the freight side doors would be like on the actual prototype. But again, they're built board by board, and those sheds that were supposedly standard for the railway had this chevron pattern on their freight side doors. So it was kind of a challenge and a bit of fun to make up a full elaborate sliding door. The runners styrene channel and the rollers are thin slices of styrene rod. The roller brackets are 5 thou styrene strip, and the bolt heads on those brackets are dabs of canopy glue applied with a toothpick. The less elaborate railside sliding door is simply glued to a strip of styrene angle. Then once they're assembled, they're all, because I pre-stain all my timber before I start, but I don't necessarily colour it. Once they're assembled, I sprayed them again with a thinned colour coat, and you can get the feel there for the weathering on it, and then dusted on some charcoal powder. And I mentioned last week, it's not charcoal chalk. This is actually a piece of charcoal that I've taken from the fireplace, broken down and used the dust from that. The end doors, which are super plain, are attached to their doorposts with hinges of styrene angle. And I modelled it with all the doors fully open so that the interior can be seen from a variety of angles. Next slide. I don't buy commercial steps either. I make my own. And on this model, there are 4 sets of stairs, a set of stairs at each end of the deck, and then the stairs at the doorway landings at each end of the shed. But in making the stairs from scratch, I actually make some stringers so that I can slot the treads in. I've tried just gluing treads to plain timber and, oh my God. So the key thing to note in this is that stringers are handed. You need a right-hand stringer and you need a left-hand stringer. So I make the stringers by taping 2 lengths of 1x8 scale lumber to a workboard, and then gluing 1x6 across it. And those 6-inch strips are spaced 2 inches apart so they can accommodate scale 2-inch treads. Here the slope of the steps are fairly standard 45 degrees, so the stringers are set at 90 degrees and then the strips put across. So the slope of the stairs can be varied simply by changing the angle between the stringers at construction. For example, if you wanted steeper stairs, the angle between the stringers would be less than 90 degrees. And the thing I like about it is that I end up with a square set of stairs with the steps more or less pretty much parallel to each other, and they are pretty sturdy. Next slide. So before I started assembling, I weathered the inside faces of the walls and the roof panels. I wanted to portray the buildup of dust and grime that accumulates in sheds. And again, my favourite charcoal dust was brushed all over the lower sections, the walls in particular, but also the upper faces of the horizontal frame timbers. I have plenty of weathering inspiration within the sheds on the farm, but this photo of a disused New South Wales Railways goods shed is probably a step too far. Ironically, this shed is at the station, which was the home station for the locomotives that ran up the branch. And obviously the shed's not been used for a little while. But it's got some useful details. First up, notice the amount of light that comes through the skylight just in the upper left-hand corner there. And then also the gap between the roof and the wall tops. No attempt to seal this from the weather. And this particular area is at the top of the Blue Mountains, which are about 3-hour rail ride out of Sydney, and it snows and it gets bitterly cold and brutal winds blow through. So it must have been pretty uncomfortable in these sheds at certain times of the year. And notice also you can see the grime on the walls, so that made me feel pretty good. Notice also there are double brackets between the trusses and the walls, but they're not on the standard plan for the smaller version of this shed. And that the lamps, like the top right-hand corner, are centred over the deck, not over the centre of the shed, as in the plans for the smaller version. Next slide. So assembly is fairly traditional in terms of getting started. I think probably the first joint is the most important because it really does set the squareness of the entire model. So I spend a bit of time getting that correct. And I always assemble models, structures, locomotives, wagons on a sheet of glass. It gives me confidence that everything is square and level. Next slide. So then we've got the walls are glued to the styrene strips that are on the false base that I showed last week. And then the deck's glued to the piers. So the deck is independent of the walls. Excuse me. So, and also note the lumber top corner braces that were on the plan. So that works well at holding the top corners of the shed square as well, the model as well as the real thing. And fortunately, they're not entirely visible, but my attempt at depicting board joins on the deck are not as good as true joins. Next slide will show the rail side wall, inside wall, yes. And this, you can see the sort of few dark lines across some of the boards on the deck. Next slide. So finally into the real life stuff. So roof trusses were glued to the wall top plates, which really does start to make this thing look pretty impressive. I decided because I had the detail inside that I wanted it to be seen. So I got some micro rooms LED units. They're pretty chunky, but they're self-contained and they run directly from a 12 to 15 volt supply. I run them at 8 volts and that's plenty bright enough, particularly in a relatively small structure like this. But I attached them, to keep them well and truly out of sight, I attached them to a couple of lengths of lumber glued between pairs of trusses. And then I ran their wires along through the styrene tube up near the peak of the roof. And then down along the corner of the office and through the baseboard to the power supply. There are also, you can see one in the middle there of 3 cosmetic lamp covers that I hung from the beam. I could have and probably should have drilled those out to accept micro LEDs, but I didn't really have the time, certainly didn't have the patience to order and wait for items to come through the mail. And again, it's, as I said, it's not a contest model. Next slide. So the roof is pretty much a repeat of the way the walls were approached, though the panels are glued to purlins on the trusses. The skylights are like the windows, 5 thou clear styrene held in place with scale lumber frames. The ridge cap is a length of 1 millimetre styrene rod glued into the gap between the 2 roof sections and covered with cigarette paper. I use cigarette paper also for the flashing around the skylights and down along the barges. However, I made an error. I used a different glue to what I usually use for doing flashing, and the result's less than I'm used to. The roof sheets were faded in the same way as the walls. Then I dabbed on roof brown with a piece of sponge, ran a dry brush downwards over those paint dabs and worked various shades of rust-coloured powder into the almost dry paint. Next slide. Next slide. There should be one of the rail side wall.
We had that.
Right, okay, that's fine. We'll move on. Here we've got, nope, go back one. So the barge boards are, this time they're pre-painted and glued to the purlin ends. The external deck was actually made for the first shed, but it's based on the plan, board by board. I made it, again, the length of these things seem to vary site to site. I made it long enough to fully accommodate a standard bogie goods wagon. It's about 60 feet, and it doesn't overwhelm either the site or the shed. The 1923 signalling diagram for this station showed a substantial external deck, but the photos in 57 and 63 don't show a deck at all. So it was either removed by 57 or never built. Next slide. And this is the other end. The key element there is the little landing, and the steps are glued directly to the body, and again using matte medium to reinforce the glue joints. The other visual item is the vehicle guard immediately under the freight door on the roadside wall. The plan for this size shed only showed a vehicle guard that size, but on the prototype, there's often full-length guard boards along the freight side wall. And in the prototype photo I have from 63, it's just possible that this thing did have full-length roadside guards, but I chose not to proceed there. Next slide. Now for some sort of atmospheric photos. We're at the end here. Here we're looking through the shed from the external deck end. You can see the internal deck on the left and the masonry section under the railside wall, and then the end of the siding off in the distance. Next slide. This shot's taken with an inexpensive mini camera sitting on a flat wagon. The interior details include milk churns that are out of sight here, hay bales, pallets, bagged potatoes, and the shed office with the chalkboard on the outer wall down in the corner there. Probably need to find a model of a hand-operated pallet trolley, so common at the time. Either that or I'll have to make one. And I really probably should add more clutter, such as litter and packing scraps on the deck and along the rails. It is 1980 after all, when the leave it where you used it mentality was common. Next slide. Once I'd got the building in place, I then ran a variety of weathering powders, including rust, earth, and grime, over the entire structure. And then added a bit more ground cover and ballast to settle the building into the terrain. It's not glued down, so when the layout's disassembled, the building will be retrieved intact. I rather like this view along the yard perimeter, looking towards the station buildings and the footbridge. Next slide, and one final one. Oh, excuse me. Here we're looking in the down direction, with the up main to the far right, with the down main beside it. Then an interesting feature on this particular thing that really grabbed my attention for when I was looking around for a model to or a prototype on which to base a model, is that the branch runs parallel to the main line from the station. It doesn't go off the main line after the yard. So the branch is in the centre, the yard loop is beside it, and then the shed siding and what's called the stock siding, the two to the far left. I think the shed sits well within the scene. It's clearly the focus, but it doesn't overwhelm the scene. On the prototype, if we stand at this position, Sydney is 4 to 5 hours behind us. And Bathurst, the first city west of the Blue Mountains, is less than an hour down the line. And so it's probably about time for me to roll along too. So thank you.
Excellent model, Craig. Very, very well done. And,
Thanks.
And picked up 3 interesting things. I'm sure there's more, but you put the clear acetate in the window opening first, then you put your wood on the inside and outside. Is that right?
That's right.
When you're putting in the window. That's a great technique, so it's not a science project to make a window. You know, you've got a base to glue your wood to, right? Yeah. It's a good technique. And of course, the clever way to make those stairs, you know, it's 1x6s and 2-inch treads. That's a very clever, I'm going to try that myself. That's a very clever way to make a stair without buying laser cut ones, you know?
Yep.
And even though it's obvious, it's an overlooked detail, those top corner braces that you put in before you put the roof on. I thought, I don't think a lot of people model that. They either forget or don't pick up on it, but another thing I'm gonna add to my structures are those, you know, those triangular corner braces, which are natural, you know, particularly if I do an engine shed, I think I'm gonna incorporate that.
Yeah.
And one other thing, tell me a little about those knock, that's the German, right? Knock light.
Yes.
What? Was ist das Licht? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my German. I got through high school with German, but that's as far as I've gone. Even when I've gone to Germany, I've not been able to use it. They're little. Well, like I said, they're chunky little units. I'm actually looking at the packet here. They're chunky little units. I'll see if I can stick it in front of my head. That come. Here we go. Yes, there we are. So let me see if I can't get it. No, right.
You'd have to turn off. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Yeah. So that's the entire thing. Comes sort of with, what do we got there? About 6 inches of wire. And the good thing is that you don't have to do anything in terms of adding a resistor in line or anything. It's all there. And as I say, they use them for, you can use them on 12 or 15 volts, DC or AC, and that's it. So I thought, well, that's nice and quick and easy. And their price was actually not vastly different from buying, all the components for an LED and the resistor and everything else. And so, yeah, they were quick, easy, and in something like a shed where you can hide them way up in the peak, quite useful.
Very good. or as the Germans say, ausgezeichnet. I actually speak German.
Absolutely. Dankeschön.
Very good. That really nice. 4 great tips there. Do we have any questions from our Zoom crew or our YouTube via text? Any questions?
I have a question to do with the weathering of the corrugated steel. Beautiful model, by the way. You said you used IPA. To me, IPA is India Pale Ale.
Yes, well, actually, I was consuming IPA while I used isopropanol
Very good.
on the shed wall. So yes. Yeah. I like it because it dries off pretty quickly, and it does clean grease off. The issue, of course, is I needed to let the contact adhesive properly cure for a day or two before I then cleaned the metal. Otherwise, the IPA, will eat into
Just wipe it right off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you.
It's a spectacular looking model. And any other questions for Craig all the way from Australia? Well, thank you, Craig, and we hope to have you on the show again with that kind of modeling. A lot of tips there, a lot of things some of us have never seen, and we've been doing this since we were 7 years old. So terrific segment. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Okay, then. Next, I'd like to run the Facebook video, and then I'll have my own presentation.
Do you enjoy New Tracks modeling? You can help support New Tracks in many ways, but donating to support the show and other activities is really appreciated. This helps pay for the expenses of producing the show, including Zoom, website, and emailing costs. You can support New Tracks financially in 3 ways. First, you can make direct contributions through Patreon. With Patreon, you can make a single or monthly contribution to New Tracks. You can also contribute through YouTube by using super stickers and super chats to donate. Finally, when you watch a YouTube replay, letting the ads run will increase the payout to New Tracks. Thank you for supporting New Tracks modeling.
Although our costs are nominal, we do have costs of producing the show, and you can make a $5 or $10 or whatever you like donation, $20, that would be appreciated. These shows are broken out, segments are broken out later in the week, and the entire show is posted on YouTube immediately after we finish tonight. So if you need to see one of these QR codes, just go in and have a look. Okay, next up, I have a presentation on installing Tortoise machines. So this is installing the Tortoise switch machines on 2-inch foam. You have to get creative here. If you have a plywood base, it's somewhat easy to mount a switch machine, whether it be a Tortoise or otherwise, underneath the layout because you have something to screw to. But when you have a 2-inch foam, not only can you not screw anything to it with any degree of competency, but you're 2 inches away from where you need to be. So I came up with this way to mount these Tortoise machines, and I did a quick count. I think I have 38 of them on the new on my new layout, and I've been doing quite a bit of them past week, and I thought I'd just show you how I do it. The idea of the Tortoise machine is it's a slow motion motor with a spring, and it just throws the switch left and right, the turnout. So what I do is I make a base. I usually use plywood, but I didn't have a thin enough plywood to do it this time, so I thought I'd try just masonite. So when you buy a Tortoise machine, they give you a template on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I simply cut out the template. Then I have the luxury of a table saw, and I just ripped some masonite to the width of the template. And then my scrap masonite provided me with the ability to have about 8 of these per strip. Of course, that varies on how long you rip your strips. This could be very, you don't want to go any thicker than 1/4 inch, but this would be 1/8 inch masonite or 1/4 inch plywood or less. You could use aircraft grade plywood from Hobby Lobby or a hobby shop. I just use masonite. This is the first time I ever used masonite, and it worked just fine. I allowed for the kerf of the saw blade. So I double line, when I put my modeler square on here, I put a double line on there, which is shown on the right, so that I got consistent width. Not that it really matters, but I just like to do things precise. So that's then with a fine, with that template, I put holes in the template, and then with just a regular fine tip marker, I mark the center for these drill pilot holes. That pen on the left is showing where the penetration goes for the wire. The others are simply for the mounting of the Tortoise machine. Then I went back with a larger marker because I was going to use my drill press in the garage, which is relatively low lighting. Some of you have been in my garage. We need a little bit more light in there. So I just made larger holes with a permanent marker there. And then between my drill press, I used roughly a 3/8 inch for the large penetration, and then a little 16th inch pilot hole for the other 4 screws. And then with my chop saw, I just cut these up. And a very inexpensive way to make these base plates. Then with a what's called a rat tail rasp or file. This is a rasp. Difference is it just has a little coarser teeth. I just went through that hole. I didn't want any interference with the spring, and I just wanted to dress that hole, because when you punch that through with the drill and a drill press, you get a little material on the bottom of it, and I just wanted to take that off just to clean it up. Then we go back to the layout, and I use Pico switches. It's important to, if you're using a Pico snap switch, I take out the spring. So there's a little tab here. There's a piece of plastic, and there's a little wire spring in here and a tab. You just turn the Pico switch upside down. You move the tabs up, pull the metal clip off, and the plastic cover and spring, basically the spring flies out of there. And then right dead center of the cork, I make a mark. And that's where that penetration will go for that spring wire. Now, the nice thing about using a foam base is it's easy to get penetrations through it. So I just take a screwdriver and I punch through my cork and right through the 2-inch foam all the way through. But foam collapses onto itself. You don't get a good penetration. So I chase it with that same rat tail file, just a few strokes up and down there, and you've got a nice clean hole to put that spring through. Because you don't want it to bind in that hole, so you have to have a nice clean hole through that foam. The foam like I say, if you just punch it with I guess you could drill it, but even a drill, you'll get a recovery of the cork and the foam, and it should be chased with a rat tail file round. Next up, we're going to prepare the Pico snap switch with our base. I super glue them right to the reverse of the switch there, and I use a slow setting super glue that I found. It doesn't bind like your arc welding. It gives you a little time to work it. And you want that throw on that Pico switch. It has a hole there for the spring. You want that dead center of this penetration. So the center of the turnout, you don't want it left or right. You want it right in the middle. Because if you have it too far to the left or too far to the right, you won't get the proper swing when that spring goes. So it's critical to use a slow setting glue. I guess you could use a tacky glue, but I like super glue, and this one gives you a few, probably 5-10 seconds to play around with it. And I just slide it till I get dead nuts right in the middle there, and that's what's shown on the right. So that's what you're trying to achieve there. See how it's right in the middle, more or less? And you do a quality check. You slide the frog, or not the frog, the arms of the switch back and forth and make sure you have that thing right in the center. I've did 38 of them this way, no problem. So now that that's glued to the bottom of the Pico switch and the super glue is set, I locate the base plate on the layout and I outline it with a permanent marker. Then with a razor saw, I cut out the cork first. It's a nice, you can see that nice clean hole that I've made with the rat tail rasp. So I cut the cork out, and then with that saw, I just pry the cork out of the way. I use a contact cement, as Jeff Jordan helped me with this section of the layout, actually. Jeff, this is your work. I cut this out, pried up the contact cement. This stuff comes right out. Then with a you can use any kind of saw, but with a relatively fine tooth saw, I just start cutting out this cube. We're going to make a cube, and you'll see how I recess the perimeter so that masonite has something to sit on, although that's not critical. As I found out later, you can go all the way to the outside. You're really that masonite's really just giving a suspension to the bottom of that Pico switch. It's not necessary to have this lip. You can do it either way. So in this particular case, I left a lip around the perimeter, simply cut with this fine tooth saw all the way around all four sides. Then underneath my layout, I just press this cube upward and out she comes. You do want to be careful. There's my bus line for my DCC circuit. And this is the one of the power lines to recharge my wireless throttles. You do want to be careful if you're using a saw like this that you don't cut your bus line. I was very careful in that regard. I've never even snagged a wire, but you do want to be aware of that. Next, it's time to mount the Tortoise machine to our base. And these are number 4 screws, 3/4 inches long. You don't worry about them sticking up like this because I'm going to saw them off with a cutoff wheel. And there's the wire sticking through. So there it is in its raw form. I just snip flush the spring wire with a pair of snips from Xuron and just cut it flush. And then with my Dremel and a cutoff wheel, I just cut these flush to the masonite. Some advice on using these cutoff wheels. They're fragile, they can fly apart, so you must wear eye protection. And you've got to let the cutoff wheel do the work. So you don't force it through even a small cut like this. Just take your time. I used about 3/4 speed on my Dremel, and I cut this. The first one I cut, that little piece flew off, went into my sock, and burned the hell out of me. But the next one, I put my feet back. So a little unexpected joy from cutting that off. There they are, cut flush. Ooh. Oh, geez, hold on. There they are, cut flush. This was a used turnout, so it was a little dirty. It doesn't matter whether you dig into the masonite, because that's going to get covered with ballast. This is a super glue that I found, I think, on Amazon. I like this. The stuff that I had been buying from Micromark for the last 20 years bonds virtually instantly. It's like arc welding. This stuff gives you a little time to work with things. I went back and I put a drop of super glue over the heads of each one of these cut screws. You know, the masonite's only 1/8 of an inch thick. I don't think I'd ever have a trouble with it, but I just put a drop of glue on it just to seal it up. And my concern wasn't, I use a water-based, I use matte medium and Elmer's glue to put down my ballast. I didn't want that masonite to swell and for that tortoise machine to come loose. So this is a bit of waterproofing was the idea, the concept here, in case that masonite would swell out around those screw heads. That was my thought process anyway. I never did it with the plywood, but this was my first time with masonite. Before you place the turnout in the layout, these Pico switches have opportunity to put in a either hook this wire up to the tortoise machine, so that's a live frog, or to use a frog juicer. I use frog juicers, so I just soldered a wire to the bottom of that turnout. And then I place it in, and this is the contact cement I use, so I put a little contact cement there, a little here. I try to stay away from putting any contact cement near the movement of this switch. You can see how this sort of hangs around that lip. It's not really necessary. This bridge from here to here is probably strong enough on its own, especially with this masonite in place. Oop. So glad I'm bouncing around here. So, and there it is installed, ballasted in place on the layout, more or less. The ballasting isn't finished. So that's my technique in mounting tortoise machines on 2-inch foam. Any questions there? Dead silence. Thank you, Jeff, for that was your work there.
I'm glad it worked.
It did. And my layout now can run trains endlessly round and round and round on a double track main line. Got that done. Well,
you don't have any ideas on how to do that for track that's already mounted on foam with cork. I guess you have to do it before you put the track down, right?
You could come up from underneath.
Yeah, you can.
You could get a router get a
No, you're
long bit and come up from underneath and then create a platform to mount to.
Yeah, you could do, you mean if you already have the turnout in and you want to add it?
Yeah, yeah, we've got our club's layout that's all mounted on foam, but it's already finished and everything. But it
Yeah,
would be sure nice to be able to mount those somehow.
you could just like Phil said, I don't know if you need a router, but you could just with a blade or a knife, just whittle away to cut a pocket out of there. And then you could just it would be a little bit of a science project.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I
would
can see.
probably, I would probably
Well,
just,
the nice thing about using a router is that you could set the depth
Yeah,
that you went down to and then cut it out, and it would give you a flat at the bottom. And then you could put what you could do is you could put the switch together and get some like liquid nails, put the tortoise, mount it to the thing, get some liquid nails, slide it up in there and glue it, and then just hold it in place.
yeah.
It was centered, and that would probably fit it in pretty well. You could get close. Actually, I was going to show this. Let me show something real quick.
what I would do, Craig, is just cut the turnout out and do what I did. I'd just cut it out and cut it out with a razor saw so you get nice cuts. Take the turnout out, cut the hole, put it all back in just like I did. That's what I would do. Otherwise, it's going to get ugly.
Yeah,
So yeah.
Thanks.
So this is actually what I did some modules and did some similar thing, but the beauty of this is being able to understand where you're going to do it ahead of time because I'd laid out the track plan. So you see these smaller boxes here. The bigger boxes are where buildings were going to go, but these are actually for turnouts. So they were actually set in place. And then what you get is the foam gets built up on top of that. But when you turn it over and you look at it from the backside, you've basically got a hole right where the turnout is to mount the tortoise into. And then when you get done, I covered it with, after the foam was done, then came back and put it over the road bed on top and then finished it off. So
yeah, there you have the
it's-
luxury of
yeah,
plywood.
it's if you know you're doing it ahead of time, exactly, and add the plywood exactly too.
Yeah, my technique is when you're just working with foam and no
Pure
plywood.
foam.
Yeah. So.
Yep. No, exactly.
All right, then. I think that's it for this evening's show. I want to thank all the presenters this evening, especially all the way from Australia. That was great, Craig. And we have a tradition on the show that Father Ron closes the show, and I think I saw him this evening, so we're in business.
Master maker of the universe, our scale models imitate your creative spirit, and we learn the genius of your handiwork. Teach us to appreciate all you have made. Amen.
Thank you, Father Ron, Master Modeler. And Father Ron, I wanted to make you a proposition.
I'm listening.
I've got a bunch of kits that I will never build because they're just going to sit on the shelf like they have for the last 20 years. Would you be interested in me giving you a kit, and then you could photograph it all along the way and present it over a couple of shows?
I can do that.
Terrific. They're O scale. That's okay. And you get to keep
hopefully
it.
I've got enough room for an O-scale kit.
And you get to keep it at the end or donate it or do whatever you like. But I'll you have my email. If you could email me your address, I will send you a kit, a laser craftsman kit.
Okay.
And, you can have at it.
All right.
Terrific. I knew I could get you to model again in some way or another. All right, that's great. And now Phil has a caboose for us. Why don't you tell us a little about what we're looking at, Phil?
Yeah, this was a very nice HO layout. One of the things that was interesting, I don't know if you noticed that this again was one of the layouts where they had multiple seasons on the layout, kind of fall and or spring and winter both. But much more traditional layout with kind of walking around the rooms at a fairly low height. It was very nicely done. Again, back to the winter scene, which is really cool.
That's Southern California, right?
It is Michigan after all, you know.
Well, I thought it
There's
was
affinity for snow. Very nicely done.
Bill, what was the stuff that he used for snow? Because I see it's between the tracks. I guess it's hard, so you don't have to worry about getting ruts in it if you derail or something.
Plastic.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems
Usually
so,
white,
yeah.
White plaster and seal it. Yeah.
Okay.
And with some sparkling in it. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't ask. You know, it's hard when you're at those things, and you saw how many people were in the room there. There were 8 or 10 people in there, and the layout owner is pulling his hair out, and he's on fire. So,
Greg Knock also makes this glittering stuff for snow.
Yeah, I've actually got some Woodland Scenics, I think it is, snow. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's their product that I used for that snow diorama I did last year.
Yeah.
There's a new product by Deluxe Materials. They make glues and all kinds of things that they make a snow product as well.
But I was thinking you can't just spread it loose where all the track is, because you're going to get fingerprints when you re-rail stuff and things like that. So it has to be hardened down, I assume.
Well, you can seal it with matte medium, and you can you can seal it up. Yeah.
Yeah, but you need to make sure you keep your flangeways everywhere while you do that.
We have a solution for that. Jeff Jordan has a rotary snowplow he's working on. He'll be able to loan that out to people. And
the rotary snowplow won't help with that, but I do have a flanger.
Well, that concludes our show. Again, thank you, all the presenters, and we'll see you next Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. We plan to be on, and see you next week.